Hi everybody, welcome back to the Mindworks channel. You're with me, Arun Sharma, and today's session, in this live session I'm doing with you, this is how to prepare for CAT 22 from March. This is a question that a lot of you have been asking me, whether it's on my social media accounts or my chats, etc. Even students who are planning to start to prepare have been asking this question: कि March से अगर start कर रहा हूँ, if I'm starting from March, November में exam है, last Sunday of November, what should I do to prepare? So we are bringing, this session of course is going to address that issue for you. But one announcement I'd like to make, that under the Arun Sharma Academy, we run a 1 rupee school where we do courses for 1 rupee, and in that course, an upcoming course for all of you, which you can join, is this 8-month study plan to crack CAT 22, which will be very relevant if you are interested in the topic of this video. So we are doing a 3-day live course, 1 hour each, and this is just at 1 rupee. It's exclusively available on the Arun Sharma Academy app. The link for buying the course, etc., will be posted after the video is done. You can check back in half an hour after the video is over. And the schedule for this course is 19th March, 20th March, and 21st March. Quants, DILR, and VRC. 1 hour each, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on each of these days, where I'll be live with you, and you can interact with me, and we can then have a look at this. So do head over to the Arun Sharma Academy app. It's there on the Google Play. On App Store, you can download it from the My Institute tab. You'll have to download the My Institute app and use the code DGTCB. That's the organizational code. DGTCB, if you're doing it from the iOS App Store. So okay, so with that thing out of the way, with that promotion or with that information out of the way, we are just going ahead with this discussion, that how do you begin your process of preparation. You have approximately an 8-month timeline, and you need to understand that when you prepare for CAT, there are 2 segments to preparation. One part is where you are developing your ability to prepare, and the other part is where you're focusing on your performance. And inside the CAT, you only qualify if the confluence of ability and performance matches. Those people qualify who have both ability on the day and performance on the day. Only ability on the day without performance will not help you qualify. Only performance without ability will not help you qualify. Hence, when you're preparing for this exam, during the phase of preparation, the 8 months, 9 months, whatever time frame you have to make sure that there's adequate work on ability and there's also adequate work on performance. I've seen people qualify or prepare overboard on ability without doing much on performance, and that's something that you should avoid, and that's a mistake you should not make. So having said this, broadly, one of the problems that starts happening for people starting in March is that, obviously when I talk about working on performance, the key factor of performance work is taking mocks, analyzing mocks, going back to the drawing board and working on your issues that are happening inside the mocks, and coming back to take a mock. So mock cycle typically requires 2 hours for a mock. We are assuming that CAT 22 will remain a 2-hour exam, although that will get only cleared in July, August, but let's assume it's going to be a 2-hour exam for the time being. Agar uncertainty hoga, 3 hour ho jayega, to we'll take care of that around that time, but for the time being we can assume it's a 2-hour exam. So 2 hours for the mock, around 4 to 5 hours for analysis, because when you analyze a mock, you do 2 things. You analyze your performance at various section wise performance, and various times within the section, and against various kinds of questions, how you behaved and how you took decisions. So one aspect of analysis is the decision analysis. The other aspect of the analysis is the knowledge analysis, where you then start looking at each and every question of the mock that you take, and you have to spend the time to understand how to solve that, so that next time you face a question like that, you are ready for solving that. So mocks, analysis, and then you get back to the drawing board. So what the mocks will do, they'll give you certain inputs to you. Now this is what is lacking in your preparation, or this is where you're going wrong, or this is what is creating a problem for you. So you go back to the drawing board and you spend maybe 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours on that. So one mock is kind of a minimum 10 hour cycle. It can be up to 20-25 hours depending on how much time you need to go back to the drawing board. So that's why when you come to the performance zone of your preparation, when you start the mocks, you kind of need approximately 4-5 months when you're preparing. And the problem that happens is that people starting in March or April or May, and we'll come out with similar videos as we keep going. The problem that happens is that when you start preparing for CAT in March or onwards, you typically require, whether you talk about quants, verbal or DILR, the ability work requires around 4-5 months. So if you're starting mid-March, let's say, so 5 months from there is mid-April, mid-May, mid-June, mid-July, mid-August. So if you are going to do only ability work till mid-August and you go with the conventional approach that पहले पढ़ाई खत्म करूँगा उसके बाद टेस्ट लेना स्टार्ट करूँगा, तो what happens is that a mock cycle becomes very, very short. And then problem that happens with the mock cycle with a short is that if your mock scores hit the upper circuit and they keep going up as you keep taking mocks, then there's no issue. 2 months is enough for mocks if you are going to continue going with your scores up and up and up, and there's no speed breakers to your scores, and you keep going. You start with 30s, 40s, 50s out of 200 marks or 198 marks. That's the current CAT pattern, and your score keeps jumping and goes to 110, and by your 10th, 15th mock, 20th mock, 25th mock, you don't need to do much work. If that is the cycle, then 2 months is enough. But for most people, that cycle does not happen. So most people, what happens is your score starts or gets stuck at a certain point. Sometimes some people it gets stuck in the 40s, 50s, others it gets stuck in 60s, 70s. किसी का 80, 90 में stuck हो जाता है. And then when you want to raise your score, if your score is stuck 60, 70, you're heading to 90, 92 percentile. And if you are aspiring for 98, 99 percentile, you'll have to break out of that rut that you have created or you have got into. And then in that context, if your mock cycle is just 2.5 months long, it's dangerous. Which is why what I suggest is that, and you really cannot shorten this if you're preparing for the first time. You really cannot shorten this this cycle. You really cannot shorten this cycle to less than 5 months, because 5 months to minimum लगेगा तुमको उसको करने में. So that's why what you will need to do then is you'll need to pull this to a little bit this thing, and there'll have to be a time frame where you're doing both. Your ability work is also happening and your mocks work is also happening. So typically you'll have to starting to take mocks around June while your ability work is happening. Of course, you might have finished just 60% of the work on ability that you want to do by that time, but that's okay. You can take mocks with partial knowledge also. Anyway, when you go into exam, very few people know all the questions. So even if let's say you have reached a point where in quants out of 22 questions, you know around 12 to 14 questions because you've done only those chapters, you can start the mocks and then you can calculate, okay, this part I've not done. When I'll do this part, then out of 12, if I'm getting 8 right, out of 18, I'll start getting 11, 12 right. So how do if I want to get 16 right, what more do I need to do on the stuff that I've already done? So please remember that. And once you remember that, the other factor is the individual ability improvement work that you need to work on. So when you talk about quants, let's look at this section wise. When you look at quants, your order of preparation for quants has to be arithmetic, which is block 2-3 in my book. All the chapters from average, allegation, percentage, ratio, proportion, profit and loss, interest, time and work, time, speed, distance, all those 8 chapters, followed by block 1, which is number systems. This will give you close to around 8 to 10 questions out of 22. 22 questions, the current pattern of the CAT. So current pattern जो आ रहा है, or ever since it's become online, this has become the most important area of the CAT. So it's that means last 10-12 years we are talking about. So you will expect around 8-10 questions from here. And as you know, if you can do 8 to 10 questions all correct, you can still get a 95-96 percentile in the quant section in the CAT by just doing this. So your first focus has to be the arithmetic, then followed by number system, and then followed by block 4, geometry mensuration, 5, functions, inequalities, logs and quadratics, and 6, which is permutation, combination, probability and set theory. But 4, 5, 6, why I put it in a circle is because you can choose the order. You can do 4, 5, 6, you can do 5, 4, 6, you can do 6, 5, 4, etc. Whatever order you want to do it. Typically the number of questions you will get 8 to 10 from here, 3 to 6 from here. Block 4, geometry, you will again get 3 to 6 questions, geometry mensuration. Block 5, functions is the second most important area. So you might want to say, okay, block 2, 3, 1, then 5. Why can't I jump straight from 2, 3 to 5? Is because without understanding number systems, you really can't go to block 5 so well. You will not be able to understand that. So this would be how you would plan it. And typically during this phase, if you are a first time preparer, your pace of preparation should be married to a 1 chapter per week structure. That means you have to, there are 20 chapters if you look at all the blocks. So you have to look at 20 weeks as your timeline. 20 week timeline लेते हो, 24 weeks हो जाता है, 26 weeks हो जाता है, 28 हो जाता है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, as far as you don't delay the mocks. So if you have that philosophy that I'll finish preparation and then I'll start the mocks, then it will cause a huge problem if you're going to take your preparation from 20 to 28. But if you're starting your mocks by June with 1 mock per, 2 mocks per month, let's say, and your preparation is running, instead of August वो September हो गया, 15 सितंबर 15 अगस्त का तुम्हारा प्लान था डेट का टू फिनिश, उसके बाद 15, उसके बदले 15 सितंबर हो गया, 30 सितंबर हो गया, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, बिकॉज your mocks have started, so your performance work has started. You started learning how to behave inside the exam, you started learning how to absorb pressure in the exam, how to keep your mind stable in the exam. All those things have started happening, right? The danger is if you're going to take 20 weeks, if the schedule is 20 weeks for preparing, 1 chapter per week average, some chapters are there which can take 3 weeks, but then there are other chapters which can be done in 3 days also. So for example, geometry, you can't do it in 1 week. So you'll have to keep a 3 week time frame for it. Number system will also take a 2 to 3 week time frame to do it, because these are vast chapters. Even functions and equations are at least 2 weeks each. But then there are other chapters that will help you get your average down. So for example, allegation is a 2-day chapter, 2-3 day chapter. Then profit and loss is maybe a 3 to 4 day chapter. So you can actually average down to 1. I mean, that's the thumb rule that I tell people, ki 1 chapter per week has to be your a prep cycle. I'm sorry, I'm not reading chats because they are on the machine. This thing I'll do a separate live. This thing we are planning for me to be live at a specific time every week, so that we are planning that वो announcement आपको इस पे आ जाएगा, and we'll have 2 kinds of lives. One is these kind of lives where I'm speaking on, it's more of a video broadcast, and the other kind of live is where I'll chat with you, take some of you onto the live broadcast along with me, and you can ask me questions also. So that we'll be starting these 2 things very soon. So this is this thing, but please remember the other factor. And this is I've talked about in the other, this is part of the playlist of CAT strategy. So I always talk about the fact that when you are going, this cycle that we are talking about, this 20-week cycle, is basically for completion of first rounds. Your second rounds and the third rounds and your fourth rounds have to happen. So that's why I always say that you have to plan your second and third rounds and so on. And this can be part of the work that you do along with the mocks also. When you get your feedback from the mocks that this block is not working very well, you might want to structure, okay, I want to do a block once more. So you say, okay, second round or third round of the block happens then, or it can be general part of your generic preparation also. कि first round जैसे खत्म हो गया, the second round का blocks start करते. In fact, you can start as soon as you finish blocks 2 through 3, 1. You can start while going for 4, 5, 6. You can start the second round of 2, 3, 1, specifically 2, 3. The second round you can do during this time also. And one thing you need to remember is that the pressure of preparation will only be till the maths part, and the time pressure will be very high till the maths part of your portion is not over. The moment your maths part of your portion is over, After that, your complete time gets free, because once you do that 20-week completion, your complete time gets free, and then you are starting to focus on, okay, इसमें जाके time देना है, इस week मेरे को उसमें time देना है. You start focusing and going into specific areas which are not working so well. So you've got a lot of time to do that as far as you finish your first round with at least a couple of months, or maybe 3 months in your case, if you're starting now, with 3 months this thing. So do make sure that you have planned second. I think minimum 3 rounds for every topic is important. Maybe you might need a 4th or 5th round on some topics. And why I talk about this is because I can tell you from my own personal example. I've been teaching for CAT for almost 25-27 years after passing out of IIM Bangalore, wrote those books, etc. Many times, even now when I'm teaching a topic to the students in Mindworks, I get to see that, okay, this question I had never thought about it this way, or I get to learn something new about a topic. So when after teaching a topic 200, 300, 500 times, I don't know, I've lost count. After teaching a topic 500 times, I'm still discovering new things inside the topic and inside the chapter, inside the question of the chapter. How can I tell a student कि तुम एक बार पढ़ लो और तुम्हारा काम हो जाएगा? So that's why multiple rounds is important for all the solving areas. Coming to the next area, which is your DI, how to begin data interpretation. So please understand, there is no theory in DI or in LR. So when you're doing your DI, the focus is 2 things: assisted problem solving and self problem solving. So you have to start hitting the ground running on week 1. There's no cradle time for you. Like by cradle time, I mean maths में you got some cradle time. You are put into a cradle, the teacher is teaching you, or you are studying. If you're picking my books, you're studying the theory from them, and that's what I define as cradle time. In DLR, there's no cradle time. Even if you go into my books, there's no cradle time. There's no theory inside it. There cannot be, right? So straight away, you jump into questions, you jump into solving questions. So you have only 2 methods which you work on: problem solving with assistance and problem solving self, which means without assistance. So and the more questions you get exposed to, the better it is. So when you talk about ability improvement in DI, typically, again, this is your mock cycle, what you're getting out of the mocks, and this is your ability improvement cycle. So typically you want to reach a number of around 200 to 300 sets of questions solved. So if you want to do it over a 20-week period, your automatic rate of exposure, pace of exposure comes up to 10 to 15 sets per week, depending on whether you want to do 200 or 300. The count is not so important as the learning is from those questions. And one more thing, big tip: when you decide, okay, these are the 300 questions. When you start this area, you say, okay, these are the questions in which I'll look at assisted problem solving, which means I might take assistance from the solution in the books, or I might take assistance from somebody who's better than me at this. But then you also define a group of questions which you say that this I'm going to solve on my own. I'm not taking assistance in them. And for those questions, when you go through your first round of those 300 questions, you might find that a lot of those questions don't get solved. There'll be a lot of red marks. And in some cases, I've even seen 60% questions nahi ho rahe, 40% ho rahe. So you have to plan during this time. Once your quants prep is over, as I told you, you'll get a lot of time. So you have to plan a revisit to each of these sets, specifically these red sets, because second time you're solving them, you'll see that your score, your ability to solve has definitely improved. It is bound to improve. It's logical that it will improve because of the fact that first time, let's say you had a 300 set, you took a decision to solve 300 sets, and let's say this was set 4, which you couldn't solve. So at this time when you're solving set 4, you had a self-problem solving experience of only 3 sets. At 300 sets, even if you solved only 40% of the sets, when you come back to the set the second time, you solved 120 sets on your own. So naturally the growth of your thinking is naturally going to be there once you have solved 120 sets of your own. So somebody with 120 sets of exposure of self-problem solving will be much better equipped to handle set 4 than somebody with 3 sets of exposure, which is why when you come back to this second round, a lot of these reds will turn into greens. There will still be some reds ki isko nahi, abhi nahi samajh mein aa raha hai, but then you plan a third round or fourth round. DI is not more than 300 sets. 300 सेट में अगर तुम DI नहीं सीख रहे हो, तुम DI कभी नहीं सीखोगे. Remember that. So you're going wrong in the way you're learning then in that context. And of course, after this 300 sets, the mock cycle and the previous year question cycle will give you another 150-200 sets. So that's more than enough in DI. उतने में DI नहीं सीखोगे तो कभी नहीं सीखने वाले हो. So, and the last part about DI is that split your work into traditional and logical into two kinds of questions. The third area, LR, it has to be treated as a separate topic. And how to begin LR? Again, in LR, you hit the ground running. There's no cradle time. You don't have time where you are saying, okay, पहले मैं theory पढ़ रहा हूँ, etc. Don't look for theory in a class also. Don't look for theory inside my books also. There is no theory. Because there are just two methods again to learn how to improve your problem solving skills in LR. The first is assisted problem solving and the second is self problem solving. Quants also has both these, but quants has the third one. In quants you have a third tool through which you can improve your ability at quants, which is solving theory itself. But in this context, assisted problem solving, self problem solving are the only things you have in LR. And again, in LR, the focus is around 300 sets of exposure outside your mocks and your previous year questions. And again, 300 set में अगर LR नहीं सीखने वाले तो कभी नहीं सीखने वाले हो. So if you have not significantly improved your LR after 300 sets of solving, and again the same process, first round and second round, whatever questions you could not solve, keep them for yourself. Come back. You take this thing that I'm not going to ask someone, because if I ask someone, then I'm not going to be able to solve it in the exam. Just remember that. So 300 questions plus maybe 150-200 question sets from here is more than enough for LR. And the other factor of LR is a little bit more portion in the context of question types than DI. So you have the 5 kinds of puzzles: arrangements, team formations, rankings, generic puzzles, and quantitative reasoning. You have these 5 kinds of puzzles which are there in LR. And then you've got games and tournaments, Venn diagram, network diagrams. These 8 chapters, maybe you can also put in cubes and dice, although that's not as common as the others in the LR of CAT. So that is your LR preparation for CAT. Of course, you also need to do LR preparation for non-CAT exams, the OMETs, specifically IFT and SNAP and maybe NMAT. So वहाँ पे जो exam वो questions आते हैं, they are more bank PO kind of questions. So coding, decoding, syllogisms, etc. तो उसका cycle maybe you just need a 20-day cycle to prepare all those. So that cycle you can put it here, where you're doing your syllogisms and non-CAT OMET wale this thing. Or you can do it if the exams you're giving are after CAT and this is a D-day for CAT, you can even do that during that time. But it's a good idea to maybe put it somewhere around, if this 300 questions is a 20-week cycle and you take a pace of exposure of 15 sets per week. So it's a good, this will be somewhere around mid of August to end of August for you. So after that, these 15 sets, these 10-12 question types which belong to OMETs, you can do it in a 15-20 day framework during that time. By that time your quants portion will also be over. So you'll have the time to finish that off, right? So इसको यहाँ पे करने का advantage versus वहाँ पे करने का advantage is that CAT में बहुत सारे miscellaneous questions आते हैं. So the more exposed you are to other kinds of reasoning, the more you will have a grip on those miscellaneous questions also. So just do this part for you. And then the last area is verbal. So the question I've put in verbal is that you will have to identify that is in verbal, does your cycle need to be an English improvement cycle, or is it just going to be a solving improvement cycle? Obviously, if it's just a solving improvement cycle, you need to do much less work. But if it's an English improvement cycle, then the work has to be significantly more. So you'll have to take that call. And there are 4 levels of language that you master, and 4 levels of questions also that you learn to master: word level, sentence level, para level, and passage level. So if you are already good at English, then you just need to learn the solving of each of these question types. What should be my approach? Why is this not? So what should be my approach while doing each of these question types? So that cycle is very short. It's maybe 3 months at max. But if your cycle of English needs to say, I need active work on developing my English, then all the work you need to do for vocabulary, at the word level you work on vocabulary, you should have a vocabulary register for yourself where you put in the words that you don't know during a reading. A lot of reading required. The crux for people who are weak at English is to be able to understand sentence. So I'll do a separate session, or maybe you can look at the other sessions in this playlist where I've done CAT 22. Perfect plan for cracking CAT 22. There are a set of videos में English का भी है इस playlist में, you can watch that. So you can this is the crux level. If you learn how to understand sentences, no matter how long they become, no matter how complex they are, and no matter how difficult the topic for you is, then the next two levels, because if you can understand sentences, you can understand paragraphs, and then you can understand passages, because passages are what, 5-6 paragraphs? Paragraphs are 6 to 8 sentences each in the CAT. So the understanding the sentence is the crux level. So you'll have to do a lot of work. If you need active work on English, you'll have to do a lot of work on these two levels. I'm not getting into how to do all those things, etc. in this, because as I said, I've done part of it in some of the other videos that are there on the channel. You can have a look at it. And right, that's it. I think those are the messages I wanted to give. So key questions with respect to strategy. Atulya is asking me, I can read a little bit on the side, he's asking me about how much time to devote if I'm a working professional. So I am not a very big fan of how much time to devote. My focus is always on how much work I need to do. So focus on defining a work outlet. Identify, as I told you, 20 हफ्ते का टाइम प्लान तुम निकालते हो और वो 25 हफ्ते हो जाते हैं because you're working and you are not able to complete the work in 20 weeks. It's okay as far as you start your mocks on time. So on a weekly basis, maybe you can take around, I mean, even if you're working in a very demanding job, you will be working around 60-70 hours a week if you are in a very demanding job. So you still have 98 hours if you're working 70 hours a week, which is normally not true for most people. You still have 98 hours left in the week. So if you're going to sleep for, let's say, 7-8 hours every day, so you still have 55 hours left during the week where you're not doing your work. So 55 hours is a huge chunk of time. You can devote 30 to 35 hours on a weekly basis if you are working. And as I said, कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ तो खोना पड़ता है. So you might give up a little bit on your leisure activities because you're telling yourself that this is just a 5-month period. It's not for the rest of your life, just for a 5-month period. So that's what I normally expect out of this thing, out of people who are working 30-35 hours. अगर उतना नहीं हो पा रहा है, 20-25 भी हो रहा है, तो क्या होगा? Length of preparation थोड़ा लंबा हो जाएगा, 20 से 24 हो जाएगा हफ्ता. That's okay. That's perfectly okay. But make sure that you are also optimizing the amount of time that you're spending on each activity. So you get smarter with your preparation rather than going ballistic with your preparation, right? So coming back, what I mean there is, if somebody requires 500 sets of DI to learn a certain level of DI skills, I can do it in 300 or maybe 200. So I improve my efficiency, so my required work goes down. So that's more important than how much time you're spending. So the CAT 22-23 program with MindWorks, live classes, complete course from my side in videos of this sort on every chapter, every topic. I was telling my students that if you just watch my content on the MindWorks course, you get more content than what a Time or a CL or an XYZ institute gives in a 6-month program at their centers. So you can look at it. Our next batch is starting on 21st March, and the other factor is the other thing, I'm on Instagram looking for more followers. You can follow me, Arun Sharma IMB is my Instagram, this thing. And there's a Telegram group. These links will be put up for you on on the description of this thing. There's a Telegram group, Cat Prep with Arun Sharma. You can join this. And last but not least, we have a very strong test series which I designed personally, and every test is designed by me and Meenakshi ma'am. 25 full-length mocks. We are looking at doing more than 25 this year, in fact. And there'll be also 12 replicats in this, and tests for the other exams also. So this is also available. If and when you come to the test series point, you can actually look at this. But just to remind you one last thing, this is a 3-day course. This is brought to you by my venture, Arun Sharma Academy, the 1 rupee school, which is a sub-venture, which is a venture of the Arun Sharma Academy venture. So the 1 rupee school brings to you this 1 rupee course. It's on the Arun Sharma Academy app. I'm going to see you 3 days live, 19th, 20th, 21st of March, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're going to discuss each of the areas in more details. Right? So I'll look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I have not been able to answer the chats today, but we'll do a separate session where I'm more available to look at your chats and talk about it. Chalo, bye bye. Thank you so much. See you.